Like, I can't imagine coming around on Russell Wilson.
Who had not assaulted anybody, as far as we know.
That's right. This is an indictment of me. I'm not denying that. Here we are, Cast Iron Balls, a podcast still not ready to admit that the 12-team playoff was a good idea. My name is Bob, sitting across the way from my good friend and co-host. That's Abe. How you doing tonight, Abe?
Doing well, Bob.
Yeah, here we are. Lori's here, too. How you doing tonight, Lori?
Fine.
There we are. Lori's just fine. Tonight is Monday, November 25th, 2024. It was quite an exciting weekend of sports action, despite what appeared to be a terrible slate of games. It turned into a great deal of fun. But first, Abe, it is Monday night, which means it is time to live bet the games. You've already picked this game.
I've already kind of committed. It'd be kind of weird for me to go the other way. But
in your week 13 picks, you had the Chargers as the outright winners over the Ravens, despite being a 3-point home underdog. You and Steve both have that pick made. Are you going to hedge here and try to get right on one side or the other, or are you going to stick with last week's prediction?
Ooh.
I'm going to just stay the course.
Going with the Chargers. I can live update the score here. At the half, Ravens 14, Chargers 13. So
Okay.
a close
game.
match.
Nice.
In the Monday Night Har Bowl.
Calvin upstairs was like, "Do you like Jim Harbaugh or John Harbaugh?" And I was like, "I'm not answering that. I'm not neither, none. Don't. I'm making pie crust."
If you have to pick a Harbaugh, you have to go with Jim Harbaugh.
But I don't have to pick a Harbaugh. I can just not pick a Harbaugh. This isn't the pick'em game.
One of them is an obviously crazy person, and the other one is just sort of normal football coach crazy.
Yeah.
Abe, you have a good weekend? How did you indulge
Yeah.
the
What was your
the sport?
experience like?
I was, I wanted to say I was watching obviously a lot of sports on Saturday after I hung out with Tyler at the brewery. In the lead up last week, I said that the slate of games look like shit, but I was like, I wonder if that Ohio State Indiana game is gonna tell us anything, and I was wrong.
Yeah, you were treating
it
it like election returns.
Yeah, right. And I was wrong because that game was not interesting at all.
No,
And
but you
think-
also said that if that game was not interesting, that you wouldn't watch the other ones.
He was giving people permission.
I lied about that. Yes.
Giving people permission to not watch the other ones, but come on, like Abe wasn't going to watch the rest of the
Abe
football. Come on,
frequently doesn't watch. He socializes like with Tyler.
Especially when it's like Georgia versus UMass. But I was like, I want to see these other games. But what a crazy Saturday afternoon, evening of football, and also like on Sunday, I woke up. I'm not gonna blame it on the brewery, but I woke up on Sunday a little under the weather. I was like, oh, this is that thing where like my throat was a little weird, and I'm just not gonna do anything. Just watch football, and I just spent
Sounds beautiful.
1 o'clock hour watching the Colts play like shit. And usually what I do is I'll go back and watch the last hour of the Red Zone just to see what's going on. And that Commanders Cowboys game, like nothing happened, and then everything happened all at once. And same thing with like I think it was the Chiefs and the Panthers. Like there were a lot of like crazy finishes like on Saturday and Sunday. It was pretty good times.
Yeah. Not to make everything about gambling, which I think we do a pretty good job not. I missed my NFL parlay this weekend by one game. It was a very low-stakes parlay. It was a simple 4-leg parlay, all favorites. So it wasn't going to be a big payout. I had the Vikings, the Chiefs, the Buccaneers, and the Texans. And the Texans losing to the Tennessee Titans was not something that I expected to have happen. Obviously, I hit 3 out of 4 of those, but Yeah, it's a strange weekend in sports all around. The Chiefs barely hold on again. Like you said, the Cowboys
Had a crazy finish to get a win over the Commanders.
winning 34-26.
Oh,
with
it was
24 points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it was crazy in the fourth quarter. They were like trading missed field goals or something.
Missed point afters. There were a lot of shanks. I'm sure there was some degenerate gambler who had the under on that game, like going to the fourth quarter. They're thinking, "No, this is going to be easy."
With 8.5 minutes to go, it was 10-9. Dallas beating Washington.
Then it goes field goal with 8 minutes and 11 seconds to go. Touchdown with 5:16 to go. Touchdown with 3:02 to go. Touchdown with 2:49 to go. Field goal with 1:40 to go. Touchdown with 21 seconds to go. Touchdown with 14 seconds to go.
Just crazy.
You were at
24-17 was the score of the fourth quarter. And really the score of the last 8 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
That's insane. I didn't watch hardly any NFL action. I was footballed out after the crazy Saturday.
Which is crazy because we hardly. Oh, well, you watched more football than I did, but like in the nighttime, we were watching true crime and just had football on,
Oh, okay.
which is a great strategy.
The true crime audio was up. We had the quad box going for the rest of the
It was fantastic.
football games. First, real quick on Georgia UMass, because that is particularly relevant to our interests around here. Georgia did not look great on defense, certainly. Gave up in excess of 200 yards on the
Tackling
ground
with
to UMass.
like palms.
The yards after initial contact on the run defense was nothing short of shameful. Like it's just incredible that despite making contact in the backfield often or in that first level of the defense, UMass was getting 8 to 10 to 12 yard chunks on the ground, and it was an incredibly frustrating thing to watch. But really, it was just 2 drives. If you go back and you look at it, it was those 2. They had 2 drives where they went like 80 yards on 10 or 12 plays, and then they had one more drive after the half where they had a 75-yard passing play, which kind of came out of nowhere, and it was just a misplay by. I think I have to blame Dan Jackson, the guy who was supposed to be in safety support there. It's one thing for a CB to get beat as he's going to try to bat a ball away, but for the guy who's supposed to be in double coverage, who's coming over to assist on the play, to also completely whiff and not even make contact with the guy after he catches the ball is just utterly unacceptable. Like, you cannot let a UMass guy pull a Ryan Williams on you if you are Georgia, and that's what happened.
I read this tweet earlier today. So you mentioned the yardage, 226 rushing yards that Georgia defense gave up, and that was the most Georgia has allowed since 2018 at LSU. I mean, like, it's remarkable.
So
I mean, the thing is, passing yards.
A 2-9 UMass team.
Yeah, it's like passing yards. You can get a little fluky, weird things happen, a broken assignment. But when a team rushes on you like that, it's never a good sign. So I don't know what that.
Weird.
I mean, it's such a bizarre performance.
It's almost like they weren't trying.
Yeah, it felt like it.
They probably weren't trying.
A touchdown drive to start the game, 10 plays, 75 yards, 5 minutes, 45 seconds. They had a 14-play, 75-yard, 7-minute drive also for a touchdown. And then their third touchdown was 2 plays for 75 yards and 15 seconds. Other than that, it's a lot of punts and fumbles and missed field goal opportunities. Like, it's not like they had 3 successful drives, which is really, it's 3 more successful drives than you would have expected them to have coming into this game. Maybe you figure, okay, in the fourth quarter, we're playing every single defensive scrub that's on our team. All of our walk-ons are out there. Maybe they put together a drive at the end of the game and get in the end zone. But I was not expecting 226 yards on the ground. That was fucking crazy. And it's like the perfect blueprint for what you would expect Georgia Tech to try to do to us on Friday.
Well, maybe that's the point.
Oh, what's the point?
Maybe
we can't tackle Tech.
No.
Let's advertise to Georgia Tech. We can't
Make
tackle.
Georgia Tech think we can't tackle.
It's a trap. It's a trap.
It's that Rance Priebus 3D or 4D chess that we're playing.
Yep.
Maybe it's just get the suck out of the way because it's Georgia Tech and then likely Texas and then the playoffs.
Don't get
and then,
hurt.
Yeah.
Anyway, the offense was fairly fucking spectacular, including touchdowns by Carson Beck on the first 4 drives, and then that first drive out of the gates in the half was not good. A couple of missed throws and what should have been an interception on that drive, and that ends up resulting in a field goal. But Beck was largely his old self and completely on the money through this game, as you would expect him to be. It was sort of like the offensive line was blocking for him. He didn't have to run around too much. And like this looked like more of a when the offense was on the field, it looked like a scrimmage. It looked like they were just sort of out there doing whatever they wanted to do.
It looked like they were playing UMass.
Right. It looked like they were playing UMass. Whereas when the defense was out there, it looked like we were playing like, wait, if you squint, is that Alabama? Like the colors sort of match.
That's right.
Anyway, it was a frustrating game to watch from that standpoint. But also, like, I don't think you can actually take anything away from it. Like,
No.
There's nothing to actually be worried about, except that it is in keeping with a lot of what the problems with this team have been, which is a lot of missed tackles throughout the season, and just more of that this weekend.
Are we going to talk about Florida next, or
Well, let's just go
chronologically?
Let's go by as the day went by.
Starting with Indiana?
We should go back to the Indiana game because that was the big noon kickoff, and though that game ends 38-15, it's both a little bit closer than that score indicates, in part because Ohio State at the end of the game, one of their running backs breaks a long one. And instead of scoring, slides inside the 5-yard line, right? The thing that you do at the end of a game so that you don't have to give the ball back to the opponent. He does this smart thing, right? He slides and goes down in bounds in order to keep the clock moving so that they can just possess the ball through the end of the game. Ryan Day, his coach, had other ideas about what they should do with the ball and decides instead to jam it in for one more touchdown. Making the final score 38-15. And maybe that has something to do with the fact that Coach Google Me, Kurt Signetti, had said that everybody else sucks at this, like at some pep rally. I'll play the clip here in the show. I won't do it now. But he's like, you know who sucks? Everybody who's not us. Michigan sucks. And Michigan State sucks. And Ohio State sucks.
Started with Purdue.
Right. Started with Purdue and then mentioned the actually good teams in the Big Ten. But if you're going to do that and then make a big deal out of it, you're probably going to get Ryan Day to try to show you up at the end of a game.
So lame.
Also, there were a couple of special teams flubs in that game. I think there's a blocked punt and some other special teams mistake, I can't remember, that makes this game. Again, I know that's a part of the game, right? This is what they talk about with complementary football, is that all parts of the game need to be working in concert with one another. By the way, this Indiana team, again, it never felt like it was in doubt for Ohio State, but also it didn't feel like a total blowout. And my feeling afterwards, before anything else had happened through the rest of the day, which ended up making my feeling more likely.
So funny how the day went.
Indiana's probably, like, I know this is a big number, 38-15. It feels like they're not going to be punished so much so that they won't make the field of 12 at the end of the season. I don't know what your thought was after this game, but it didn't feel like they were so embarrassed that they were going to fall completely out of contention.
Right. I mean, they're on the road and they're playing a higher ranked team, and you lose by double digits. But other teams that are going to make the 12-team playoff have also lost by double digits on the road. So, like, they're not going to be punished. I don't know where they're going to fall to. Probably like 8 or 9, but like they're not going to fall very much. This
vaunted offense, though, could not get much of anything going. Curtis Rourke, their quarterback, goes 8 of 18 for 68 yards. Which is not very many yards and not very many completions. I don't think that they are by any means a national title contender. It's obvious that they're not in that top tier of teams. But even before the SEC completely shit the bed in the back half of the day, it felt like they were probably still in the playoff hunt.
I can't imagine any team would be upset if they drew Indiana in the playoffs.
Exactly.
Like,
put them in the playoff. Let's play them.
Just like, all right, we can beat that team.
Yeah.
And they'll be happy to be there. Everybody wins.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a basketball school.
Speaking of games that look fairly dominant on the scoreboard that probably were both not really in doubt, but also weren't really a blowout, Texas looked kind of shitty against Kentucky.
Yeah.
I mean, they get the job done ultimately, 31-14. But Ewers throws for less than 200 yards. It wasn't a very good offensive performance by them at all. It helps a great deal that Kentucky fucking sucks.
Yes.
And they score a late one to make it 31-14 in a game that, again, didn't ever really feel in doubt, but also never felt like Texas was as in charge as you would have expected them to be against a much lesser opponent. It remains utterly unjustifiable to me that Texas is ranked where they are.
They won't be if they lose to A&M.
Yeah. Also, in what, again, feels like sort of a preview of what was going to come later, Penn State at Minnesota. Penn State very nearly loses that game. They end up pulling it out 26-25 after a fake punt in their own zone at the end of the game to maintain possession just so that they could not have to turn the ball over and potentially lose the thing. So credit to James Franklin for having the balls to pull that off. But if that doesn't work out and you turn the ball over in your own zone at the with 5 minutes to go or whatever, or less than 5 minutes to go, could have been disastrous for Penn State. I don't think that they would have survived another loss. Also, I don't think that they're any good.
This is another team. I did not watch this game or the highlights for this game. I just saw the score. I was like, usually, again, they struggle against teams that are like ranked, and so I didn't think much of this game. But that's surprising that they struggle to eke out a win.
Minnesota's been sneaky good this year. Not sneaky good, but sneaky better than you would have expected.
Well, and
necessarily.
we're just at the point of the year, like I said last week, probably, teams got better. Like a lot of teams that start the year shitty after a season of practice and a season of games are better than they were at the beginning of the year. And that's just what's happening with a lot of these teams. Like South Carolina is the best example.
And also not far behind, this Florida team has turned their season around.
Yeah, Florida.
Oh, man. We'll get to them in a minute. In more on the boring side of things, we had what I hoped to have been an exciting game. And this is where I started to get down about my prospects for the evening when Notre Dame ran out in front of Army fairly quickly. And
Why were you down about your prospects for the evening? Did you bet that or something?
But
no,
isn't this
just
what
in
you
terms
wanted,
of like
to clean it up? Because like if had Army won, wouldn't that have complicated the 12-team playoffs? You wanted chaos?
Well, I think that Army winning there, I think, precludes Notre Dame from making the playoff. Notre Dame can't lose to Army and NIU and still make the playoff. True. So effectively, it means that if Army wins next week against whoever the fuck they're playing, Tulane or something.
Yeah,
they're playing somebody in the AAC championship game, and if they were to win that, then they become the second group of 5 team to make the playoff in all likelihood, and it doesn't cost the Big Ten or the SEC a spot because independent Notre Dame is the one who gets the boot in favor of the second G5 team. They
play UTSA? Is that San Antonio?
Yes. Is that for the title? But that wouldn't be for the title.
That's the title. That's next week. This week is rivalry week.
No, I mean November 30th noon, UTSA at Army, and then they have the Navy Army game in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be Army Tulane in the AAC championship in a couple of weeks. Anyway, there won't be.
Anyway, then what happened?
There won't be 2 group of 5 teams in the playoff this year because Army got their ass kicked by Notre Dame, which was too bad, and I no longer support the troops because of it. Sorry. All right, moving on.
Florida.
One more thing on the maintaining yourself side of things. Boise State, the group of 5 champion, who if they beat. I think they're going to have to play. They have to play UNLV probably in the conference championship game. They will be the group of 5 champ as predicted by me in my season opening parlay that has gone to shit in various ways. But they barely survive against Wyoming, 17-13. I think Ashton Gianti, the 2,000-yard running back, got hurt in this game before coming back and sealing things away.
He was hurt a couple weeks ago. He's just real beat up.
Yeah. But anyway, on to the exciting stuff. We've got Alabama, Oklahoma. We've got Florida, Ole Miss. We've got Kansas and Colorado. The Illinois-Rutgers game had a surprising finish, but we'll get to that in a little bit. BYU, Arizona State also had an absolutely insane finish. Where should we start?
Florida, chronologically.
I mean, I have no memory of how precisely this all played out.
We were watching the Georgia game, and then so I made my friend who doesn't watch football sit over there and watch football, and not just football, but 5 football games at once. And one of them was it was Georgia, which like the game is in hand, and I'm like, you never know what happens. Yeah. And the ESPN win prediction is like 99.2, and I'm like, you never know. And then in the bottom right corner, which seems to be the best corner of the quad box, was Florida and keeping it real close with Ole Miss.
Yeah. And
then they won, and Lane Kiffin can just suck a dick.
Very
fucking
rude.
Lane. I hate him.
That's 3 losses for the Rebels. It seems unlikely that they can make the playoffs, so that we can't really rule anything out.
No, you can't rule anything out, but it is just every single one of these teams. It's like, oh, you beat Georgia. Yeah. Great job. That's very impressive. What about all the other teams? Yeah. You lost to Florida and Kentucky?
There was I think this was the game at the beginning. You know, they did it for a few of the games, like the predictometer, like a win, you're like happens? At 90%, lose. I think like Ole Miss loss was 4%.
Something, like it was a single digit.
80-something% if they win, they're in the playoffs, and then it goes down to 4%. And I think the announcer was like, might as well be 0%. My kind of announcer. What's all this dilly? What is 4%? You're either in or out. 0% if you lose. Even though there's likely going to be a 3-loss team going to get in, depending on how things shake out, but it won't be Ole Miss. But like, what a game! That was the ending of that game was remarkable. All those picks, just
so many
giving
picks.
It away.
Jackson Dart was clearly fated to throw a pick to end this game. He kept getting a reprieve. Like the governor kept calling in to say, yes, that was a pick, but I'm going to say it was not a pick. It bounced on the ground. You get another chance. And Jackson Dart strapped his helmet back to his face loosely, apparently, because Jackson Dart goes out there with the helmet just barely on top of his head because it came off like fucking 4 different times during this game. And
before he threw all those picks, he had like a rushing, like he ran for like 20, 30 yards, and he kind of fell weird. And I don't know if that threw him off, but like he was just making all kinds of mistakes after that play.
Yeah, and he would get the reprieve, and then he would go back out there, strap his helmet back on loosely, and immediately throw another pick. It was amazing. He threw like 6 picks. Only 2 of them counted. But like he threw 6 interceptions in the last 5 minutes of that goddamn game.
One of the picks at the end, like there was like 3 Florida players. I didn't know where he was throwing the ball to. Just like, hopefully this works out. He just chucked it downfield. And there was like 1 Ole Miss player, but it was mostly Florida.
I feel bad for him, but not that much because his coach sucks.
Florida played Miami, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Texas, LSU, Georgia, Ole Miss. They have to play Florida State.
I think they might be all right.
That's going to be a win. 7-win season after...
To get to 7 wins after starting with a home blowout against Miami, after losing to Texas A&M, after losing to Tennessee. I mean, this is a team that we looked at after that Kentucky win.
Billy Napier was done.
And I said,
basically like,
there
when
might
is he gonna
not
get fired?
be any more wins on this schedule. They had Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and Florida State, that they might get 1 more. And instead, they've now beat LSU and Ole Miss in consecutive weeks.
Right. It's remarkable that November slate of games, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, it's like, wow. And they're going to split them. You know, they lose two of them on the road, and they win the 2 at home. It's a remarkable turnaround.
So cool.
For a while, it looked like Napier was a dead man walking. It was just a matter of when. And they may give this guy like I don't know, even more money. This is remarkable turnaround.
To be bowl eligible with that schedule while starting 3 different quarterbacks because of injury this season is a terrific accomplishment. And I love that I'm able to say that about the Florida Gators.
It is,
right?
and
because
I know.
like, you fucking pieces of shit are only going to win 7 games this year. But it was truly a remarkable accomplishment.
And it was so fun to hope happens. Like, that was fun to root for Florida. I won't be doing it in the future.
Right.
But, like, that was a fun little thing I tried on for a couple weeks.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I was actually rooting for Florida.
No, it would have been funny if they lost,
It's
too.
just very easy to root against Brian Kelly and also then to turn around and root against Lance Kiffin the next week. That's what I was doing.
Especially because it directly benefits Georgia. Like, they really did Georgia a giant favor in beating Ole Miss.
Right. What else should we talk about from Saturday's
do you want to
games?
talk about, like, Colorado and BYU? Or do you want to skip that and just talk about the SEC?
Let's do the Big 12.
How many teams has Kansas beaten that are, like, ranked? It seems like they've done this for a few weeks now. I mean,
Yeah, Kansas has a nice little run going on here after a very difficult start to their season.
They beat number 17 Iowa State, then they beat number 6 BYU, then they beat number 16 Colorado in consecutive weeks.
That's a team that has 5 wins. They have 3 top 25 wins and only 5 overall.
It's remarkable.
This is the best season of college football.
This is like 2000. I mean, was it 2007?
2007. Yes.
Yeah, there was some crazy year where like LSU ended up winning, but it's
the
like,
number 2 team kept losing.
Yeah,
is
that's
what
right.
happened.
The number
in
2 team kept
2007.
losing. That's what.
This
it was,
one
yeah.
is just everybody loses.
Yeah.
07 was the year that everybody had 2 losses, I think. And LSU made their case for the BCS and got in ahead of Georgia, essentially by saying we were undefeated in regulation. Because
Is that the year where we played Hawaii in the bowl?
Yes,
that
that was Stafford Moreno against Hawaii. And LSU's case, they insisted that they were undefeated in regulation because their only 2 losses came in overtime. And so that was their justification politically in the press for being selected to play in the championship game. And then, of course, they fucking won because they're LSU. It's what they do when they get there. Anyway, Kansas, Colorado, this is after I had all but guaranteed it felt like Colorado was going to walk into the Big 12 championship game and then potentially into the playoff. They go out and lay a fucking egg against Kansas, and this game was never really in doubt either. They scored nothing in the first quarter. They got down. They've gotten down a lot this season, so it's like, I don't know, maybe they'll explode and make things happen. But they did not, and Kansas largely was in control all the way throughout this game. Unfortunately, I wonder if this might hurt Travis Hunter's Heisman campaign.
I mean, he had a great game, but yeah, I wonder. I mean, what else can he do? Like, he's doing all he can.
Yeah, and what's his name last year? Jaden Daniels won it, despite his team having 3 or 4 losses or whatever it was.
That's true.
Who knows? But the Big 12 is just a complete fucking clusterfuck right now, in no small part because we also have Iowa State. There's like 4 teams that are 6 or potentially going to be 6-2,
right?
And the tiebreaker situation is not entirely clear to me. The other exciting finish though was Arizona State BYU, where we had another instance of multiple rushings of the field.
This is remarkable how it keeps happening.
It's completely out of goddamn control. They're going to have to do something about it. I know that your position is that it's effectively impossible.
It is impossible. It's not a position. I mean, how can you stop a bunch of people rushing the field? What I don't get is, like, why do they get it wrong? Why? I mean, what was the game? Was it the Oklahoma-Alabama game?
Because when you're at a football game, you don't know what's going on at the football game. You only can tell on TV.
But the clock is not running. I think it was the Alabama-Oklahoma game. There was like a premature rushing of the field because there was like 20 some odd seconds left, but it wasn't running. So do people not notice that the clock isn't running? Why are you rushing the field?
No, because as you say, it's a group of people that are impossible to control. And once the first two assholes go over the wall, the two assholes behind them have to go over the wall, or else the crowd is not going to rush the field, right? It's like a stupid, once the water breaches the top of the cup, all of the rest of the water is going to follow the initial water. People are about as smart as that. And so it doesn't matter about the clock. ASU believed that it was over because there were 3 zeros on the clock, right? In fact, the ball was, with 7 seconds to go, they hike the ball. They're up 28-23 at about midfield. And instead of punting on 4th and goal, right, because this was the plan, they had gotten all the way down there. And they're up by 5. And this is not the first time that this has happened, and not the only time it happened this weekend, I don't think. But if you just kick, if you just take a knee and then kick on 4th down when you're first in goal, then you go up 8, right? That's the worst case scenario, presumably, assuming that nothing goes wrong with the kick. But what they tried to do was to give up yards in order to take time off the clock.
He was just like backing up.
So he would just back up, and then eventually go down, trying to run time off the clock, which is fine, except that now you're in a situation where it's 4th and goal from the fucking 50 instead of from the 15 or something, right? Yeah. Like, wouldn't you rather...
This is what happens when you let children coach football teams.
Right. Wouldn't you rather just kick that field goal and go up 8 and make them march all the way down the fucking field with 45 seconds to go?
I would, but I'm over 40.
And then make them hit a 2-point conversion to win it? Like, that's super unlikely. Or to tie it, rather? That's super unlikely. What the fuck are you doing with this plan of, like, running backwards, hoping that more seconds come off the clock? Anyway, this results in, on 4th down with 7 seconds to go, the kid drops back and just heaves one out of bounds. Which,
really
first of
high. He wanted it to be in the air for a long time.
Clearly should have been an intentional grounding, if we're going to call intentional grounding.
It was an intentional airing. He threw it very high up in the air. Because the point was for the clock to expire
before
as
the
ball
the
was in the air.
Right. But because the ball hit the stands with 2 seconds to go still on the clock, that's when the dead ball happens, and then you turn the ball over to BYU at midfield. That coach of theirs, that fucking Kenny Dillingsley or whatever the fucking
Dillingham, the
child coach for Arizona State, completely lost his fucking marbles while he's surrounded by like 30,000 Arizona State people on the field there, because everybody had rushed the field. They're all hanging out around the ref, who's looking at the replay on the little tablet there.
Yeah.
And he's saying, I forget what he was mouthing, but he's basically saying, no fucking way. Absolutely not. That's impossible. And he's having a fucking aneurysm, right?
I guess possible.
Like, his old lady is there on the field with him, and she turns away, like, embarrassed. Like, she's like, oh, God, Kenny's losing his fucking shit again about football. But it's like, it's such of a piece with, like, these people cannot imagine that the thing that they want to be true is not true. Like, what are you talking about? It's not possible. The game is not over. The ball hit the stands with 2 seconds to go. There's more football to be played. Your stupid scheme of running backwards did not work out. Right. And now they get to run a play. And they hit the Hail Mary. It's just 3 yards short. Yeah. It's just barely short. And then by the way, that's after like 20 minutes, like legit 20 minutes of real time elapses between one play and the next, because they have to clear thousands of people off the field.
Yeah. Would it have made more sense if they punted it? Like, would you get more hang time? Like, I wonder they're kind of overthinking this sequence of plays by going backwards, but I wonder if they would have got more hang time, air time, if they just punted it out of bounds.
It was 7 seconds on 4th down. He just has to keep running backwards. Yeah. He doesn't have to stop and throw. He just has to run backwards and get out of the tackle box.
He could run backwards and then throw. And then he
could run backwards and take a safety. Right. And they still win the game, right?
That's true.
The game ends with a safety as long as he has possession of the ball and there's zeros on the clock. He doesn't have to throw the fucking thing.
It would have been embarrassing if that Hail Mary worked.
Yeah.
I mean, even though I wanted Arizona State to win because of my picking situation, I was sort of half rooting for BYU to come out on top of that game because of the insanity of that coach just screaming in the refs' faces while he was looking at the replay. Anyway, Big 12 is utterly up in the air. Nobody knows what the fuck's going to happen there. All right, back to the
Night
SEC.
games? Okay. We had our conundrum, right? We had 2-loss Georgia, 2-loss Alabama, 2-loss Ole Miss, and 2-loss Tennessee. Georgia and Tennessee not present, not worried about it.
Yep.
You have also next week A&M, or this week A&M and Texas, who like they hate each other, but also there's SEC championship implications.
Right. They're the top two teams
on this
in the
game.
SEC. Right. Yeah.
So then in the nighttime, Ole Miss has already just eaten a dick.
Yes.
Ole Miss. So then you have Alabama at Oklahoma. Who
Yep.
sucks, and A&M at Auburn, who sucks.
Yes.
And it was just like, yeah, whatever, these games.
When you look at the schedule coming into this week, it was inconceivable that Georgia was going to end up in the SEC championship
Yeah, because
game.
Georgia was not in control, right? Georgia did not control their destiny.
No.
Something weird had to have happened, and you didn't think Alabama would stumble. The Texas A&M Auburn line was weird. It was like
It was
2.5.
points.
Yeah, it was like something. It was like, oh, that's weird, but like you didn't think Auburn could do anything.
At 9:30 or so, during halftime of one of the games, somebody on the halftime show mentioned, if Alabama and A&M both lose, Georgia is in the SEC championship game. And I couldn't process it. I was like, that must be wrong. How can that possibly be the case?
So fucking funny.
Like, we went from there's 0% chance. Like, I was like, okay, Georgia's not going to be in the championship game, and good. I don't want to fuck with the SEC championship game regardless, so it's totally fine. Whatever, we'll be fine.
Hopefully, you just got to beat Tech.
If we beat Tech, we're going to be in. It doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
To fucking 10 minutes later, it's like, no, Georgia's playing in the SEC championship game. And, like, you can't overstate how shitty Alabama looked against Oklahoma.
3 points.
I couldn't.
You can overstate it by saying that they scored 3 points and then didn't score any more points.
And those 3 points came off. There was like a turnover. At the beginning of the game, Oklahoma turns the ball over. They fumble it forward or whatever, and then Alabama goes down the field. They settle for a field goal. You're thinking, there'll be more of that coming, and then nope. Like, and
not.
I've never seen. I don't understand this fucking Milroe guy. Against Georgia, he looks like $1 million. Against anyone else, he looks like a fucking idiot. I've never seen so many piss poor throws. I mean, the pick six was bad. There was another one where he was telegraphing what he was about to do, just staring down his receiver, and some kid comes in and picks it off. He looked awful.
11 of 26 for 164 yards and 3 picks.
And even without the picks, I don't know what Oklahoma was doing, but they were containing him pretty well. He could not run past them.
Yeah, they just made sure that Jalen Milroe couldn't run the ball.
15 carries for 7 yards.
Yeah. He just looked flustered all game. What's interesting, though, the game was kind of well in hand, but Alabama was trying to mount a comeback in the fourth quarter. There was a weird play. I think it was that 17-year-old receiver.
Yeah.
He scores a touchdown. There's this late flag for illegal touching, and the team that was covering the game, they were not clear as to why that penalty was called. What I did not know. I know that intentional grounding is a loss of downs penalty. I did not know illegal touching was a loss of downs because that was a fourth down play, and there was a flag.
Who was the call? Who was the penalty on?
It was on. I guess it was on Ryan Williams. I think it was because the way
he must have stepped out of bounds.
No, he basically apparently the formation.
Oh, he
had
was
a receiver,
lined up improperly.
Yeah, the receiver to
Gotcha.
his right was off the line.
But then why is it called illegal touching?
Basically,
Because he
can't
was
touch
not he was not an eligible receiver. He was lined up
Illegal
as
touching of the ball?
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and I think that's why
Why
there was
didn't they call it an eligible receiver then?
It's illegal touching because he was the one who caught it.
There's a illegal touching sounds like you're touching a person.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you can't do that. That's a no-no. But like, it was weird because like throughout all the chaos, like Oklahoma had the ball. I was like, shouldn't this be a fourth down again and they punt or do something? Maybe try again. But it was confusing. I was like, what happened? But I guess you can't line up the way that they lined up. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So
also that was an incredible
Alabama eat a dick.
Yeah. The play that Ryan Williams made on that play that got called back though was fucking spectacular.
It's ridiculous. That kid is amazing.
Yeah. Jackson Arnold, the quarterback for Oklahoma, was 9 of 11 for 68 yards passing. And that's the team that won 24-3.
I mean, they didn't have to do much. Like Milroe was giving the game away just throughout the whole,
Did either of you see what Mike Elko said before this game?
No.
Oh, the clip where he's like, we're completely focused on, because there was that talk about
Texas.
like, how can you be focused on Auburn when you have this look ahead to next week? You're playing Texas, and it's a great big deal for the team and for the program. And he stumbles and says, no, we're just absolutely focused right where we need to be. We're right on Texas. I mean Auburn.
I don't think it's an issue. I think when you're in the situation we're in, it's easy to focus on the task at hand. I think, those big games earlier in the year, maybe you look ahead. If we didn't have at stake what's at stake, maybe you would worry about it. I think our focus is single-handedly on Texas. On Auburn right now, and locked in on what we got to get done.
And
then they lost to Auburn.
Yeah, and then they lost to Auburn in 4 overtimes.
That game, 21 unanswered by Auburn, and then 21 answered. But it was, they had the game, and then it just went the other way.
Then it went the first way.
Yeah, just crazy game.
It was a very silly game. Auburn fucking sucks, and it is amusing to me that they were able to win this game. Also,
and we get the Iron Bowl in 6 days.
Is this the first year they've done this overtime thing? Maybe I've already forgotten.
I don't think so. It just doesn't usually get to that.
Okay.
After that, what do we have? Like a 7
A&M
OT?
and LSU, and it was like 75-77, and it went until 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
They changed it.
So first possession is just normal, try to score. Second possession, if you score a touchdown, you have to go for 2. And then third possession on in overtime, it's just dueling 2-point conversions, which I think is fucking stupid.
Right.
Everybody thinks it's stupid.
But then what would
that's
you
what we're
replace
doing.
it with? Like you can also like kick it from 55 yards or something for 3? Like what would be the wrinkle?
I don't know. Give me first and goal from the 10 and just do that until the game is over, right? Give me 4 downs. Don't give me one play to decide anything.
And that was a pretty good pass that Texas A&M.
That kid who didn't catch that ball, I feel terrible.
He just penis fingered it. He just total penis fingers.
I woke up thinking about that guy. I was like, oh, that fucking kid. That sucks.
Yeah, that sucks. And you have a bunch of drunk Auburn people all over you.
Yeah, but what's bonkers about it is that that's 3 losses. But if they beat Texas next week and then beat us, then they're in the playoff with a first-round bye, right? They're a top 4 national seed if they win their next 2 games. Which is quite a tall order. They would deserve it. Like I would normally say,
that's true.
A 3-loss team should not be a top 4 national seed in a 12-team playoff. But if you beat Texas and then Georgia in consecutive weeks, I think you earned it. Actually,
you're the head coach of the. What's the pitch? Like you have to go against Texas. I mean, if you wanna, you got to go against Texas and then Georgia in back-to-back weeks. That's a rough stretch.
Tennessee made out like a bandit this weekend.
Yes.
They went from being like having to throw a fit about Indiana maybe beating them for that last spot in the playoffs to being basically a guaranteed in at this point as long as they don't lose to Vandy next week.
And Indiana had a great weekend.
Right. Indiana had a very bad afternoon, and then they turn the TV on when they get home, and they're like, oh, I guess we're fucking fine, as it turns out. We just have to beat the literal worst team in football next week.
Who is it?
I think they play Purdue next week, don't they?
Makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. In-state, I know. Yep. 29.5-point favorites. Easy.
Yeah. The end of the Illinois-Rutgers game was particularly painful for me because I had picked this game and I wanted Rutgers to win it. And Rutgers was ahead. This is another game that was 17-15 after 3 quarters. And then the score of the fourth quarter was 23-14 for a game that ends up ending 38-31. A completely insane ending. At the end of this game, Illinois has the ball. It is 4th and 13 at the Rutgers 40-yard line, and they are lined up to kick a field goal. They are losing this game by 1 point. The score is 31-30 at this point. And in classic coach fashion, the coach of Rutgers calls a timeout as the ball is being snapped to prevent the kicker from getting off a clean look or something, right? He's trying to ice the kicker, as they say in football. A college kicker trying to kick a 54-yard field goal with 14 seconds to go, apparently needs to be iced. And so, unfortunately, he called it just a half second too late, because even though he gets credit for the timeout, the snap is made, the hold goes down, and the kick is away, and it's a vicious shank.
Oh,
it is
shanked it. Wow.
It is a terrible shank, one that Abe would cackle over delightedly in the moment that it happened. And it became clear to Bert Bielema, or Bielema, or whatever that fucking guy's name is,
BML, yeah, whatever.
at Illinois, that his kicker was not equipped to make this kick happen, right? It was such a vicious shank that the coach lost all faith that the kicker was going to be able to do it again, especially after such a vicious icing by the Rutgers coach. Like, if he couldn't do it before he had been iced, surely, the Illinois coach said, my kicker cannot endure an icing after that shank and then actually come through with a kick.
And this is not like barely missed it kind of. This is like a clear, as soon as the ball leaves his foot, is a shank. Like one
right.
Of those
this is Ohio State at midnight against Georgia in 2022.
Okay.
Everybody knows it's not going anywhere good. So instead of lining up and attempting to kick a 54-yard field goal again with his shitty shanking kicker, he instead sends the offense back out there, and Luke Altmaier, the quarterback for Illinois, completes a 40-yard touchdown pass.
Wow.
And they end up winning the game. The game ends in a safety, which is why it's 38-31 instead of 36-31. But yeah, that's a tough beat if you happen to have the Rutgers Scarlet Knights there in that game. Let's see. Any other games on the schedule worth talking about before we get to the...
I don't think so. I'm very sleepy.
Pick'em recap. Cannot yet make a determination of total points because both Steve and Abe have the Chargers tonight.
Oh, I wonder how we're looking.
Quick update of that game. Chargers currently losing 23-16 with 12 and a half minutes to go in the
play
game.
time, one possession.
Let's see. Starting with Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter had Ohio State University covering 11 and a half points. Jimmy moves to 7-6. Good for you, Jimmy. Abe, that means you did not have Indiana come through for you. But you did have SMU and Boston College and the Lions over your Colts.
Dreadful game.
You'd written minus 7,000 points. I'm going to go ahead and give you credit for the win anyway, even though you were trying to lay 7,000 points. What happened in that game? What did I miss by not watching?
So not only is Richardson not very good at throwing the ball, apparently the Colts receivers are not good at catching the ball, which is a deadly combination. Just you need to be able to catch the ball. I mean, the few good throws he makes, like right at the receiver, and I say receivers, I'm talking about the tight ends. The tight end group is fucking shit. Should have gotten Brock Bowers, but whatever. The ball is thrown right to them, like to their hands. Like, just put the hands together and catch the ball.
That's a tough combination of teams to be rooting for this year because the Dogs drop a lot of balls this year, too.
It's very frustrating. I don't like drop, especially when the quarterback is getting hit. Like, at least catch the fucking ball.
Yeah. Cousin Steve had A&M. That didn't work out. He also had the Vikings and the 49ers and the Broncos. Broncos is the only game that turns green for him. The 49ers got fucking housed by the Packers. Brock Purdy is hurt.
Yeah, he's hurt. Yeah.
I didn't realize that was a known thing. I guess that's why that game got as ugly as it did. So Steve's currently only got 5 points on the week. Abe, you have a solid outing so far, actually. That's 20 points you're already working with.
It probably will end at 20 points.
Probably. Unfortunately, 20 is 10 shy of my total because I get 20 points
Great call.
for Florida beating Ole Miss outright. I also get 10 points for Kansas beating Colorado. Unfortunately, I had Vandy over LSU. That didn't quite work out, although that game was a close game also. And I had Wisconsin over Nebraska. Nebraska dominated that game, and that was a bummer. And as I also said, I had Rutgers. It was all but sealed up until that stupid attempted icing of the kicker. Lori gets 15 points this week with wins with Wyoming, Nebraska,
See, I
and
believed in Wyoming when no one else did.
Nice.
USC. But I'm going to only increase my lead this
That's
week,
right.
no matter what happens with this game.
Increase your insurmountable lead.
Just real quick on the entire playoff situation. Obviously, the playoff rankings aren't out yet, but the AP Top 25 has come out. Georgia moves up 2 slots to number 6. The top 4 are unchanged with Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, and Penn State. Notre Dame moves up 1 to 5. Georgia moves up 2 to 6. Tennessee moves up 3. Miami moves up 3. I don't understand why Miami keeps.
I don't know.
The weird thing about the outcome this weekend is that it probably cost the SEC. Like, is it possible that Alabama still fucking sneaks in?
It sure is. It
Yeah.
is. It's possible. It's possible.
They're currently 13 in the AP.
It's possible. It's so possible.
The thing that concerns me is if A&M beats Texas, which I think is unlikely, but if A&M beats Texas and then we blow out A&M, I don't think either Texas or A&M can make a rightful claim to being in the playoff.
Texas still can.
But Texas won't have beaten anybody.
It does. They don't care. They don't care. All they care is wins and losses.
The weird thing about it is that, going into this past weekend, we had a certain understanding of how things would shake out, and it was chaotic this weekend. Who's to say this upcoming weekend we don't have another? I mean, Clemson and South Carolina are playing. Like, there are a lot of games
Clemson and South Carolina.
that are happening.
I think if
so-
Clemson beats South Carolina, they're all but guaranteed to be in. Like as a first or second ACC team.
Tennessee, Vanderbilt.
If Miami loses, they're playing Syracuse. So it's not completely out of the question that Miami can lose that game. If Miami loses, then Clemson is in the ACC championship game. And I don't know, but I don't think that the committee is going to punish teams for losing their championship game.
Notre Dame, USC.
They should not, but I can't rule that out.
You can't rule it out,
Yeah.
but it seems like they will not punish teams
It
for
probably
losing their
depends on
championship
what
game.
the game looks like, but we
Right.
don't know. USC could beat Notre Dame. Like, it could happen.
Yeah, I wonder though. Notre Dame at number 5, that cost them a home game. I don't know if it cost them a spot in the playoffs. Though.
It probably does because it's a second loss.
So, but if you're saying that Notre Dame falls out because of a second loss, you have to find me a team that gets in ahead of them that has either fewer than 2 losses or 2 better losses. And it's not clear to me that Alabama with 3 losses is going to get in ahead of Notre Dame with 2.
I will believe it when the selection Sunday happens and Alabama is not listed in one of the
Yeah,
playoff
I think that's
spots.
that's what it'll take. It'll have to be the actual confirmation.
I
Alabama
just don't
is never
trust them
dead
to leave
until
out.
they're dead.
After last year, fuck Alabama.
I think that what we can say with absolute certainty after this weekend, the Big 12 is only getting 1 team in. There was a possibility that if you could sneak a couple of 1-loss teams in, or a 1-loss team and then a 2-loss team into that Big 12 championship game, you could, if you're not going to punish at all the championship game loser, then maybe the Big 12 sneaks a second team in. I think we're basically guaranteed that the Big 12 is only getting one in now.
By the
But
way,
the ACC might get 2 though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can get to. By the way, can I say my fun fact of sports? The Big 12, like you mentioned, Bob, how it's a bit of a mess. But apparently, somebody ran the numbers. 9 Big 12 teams are still in contention to make it to the Big 12 championship game. They
Wow.
have 9
That's crazy.
teams. There's like a very convoluted set of things that would have to happen for each team to make it. But like,
But it can happen.
there are 9 live teams to make the 2-team championship game. And then all of that effort just for only one of them to make it to the playoffs. That would be fun.
I think we should all be rooting for whatever this fucking scenario is that results in Arizona State getting there, because that's a fun team and they have a bunch of fun
The only thing
names.
I can care about is beating Georgia Tech.
Sure.
It would be so shitty.
Anyway, like I said, I think we've basically guaranteed that the Big 12 is getting one in. We can, let's just for sake of argument say that Boise State is in, right? So because there is a G5 team, we might as well just say it's Boise State.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I think we know that no matter what happens, Oregon is in, right?
Or yeah.
Ohio State is in.
What if
Because-
Tennessee loses to Vanderbilt? Don't they play Vandy this?
Tennessee.
Yeah. Tennessee might
yeah.
lose to Vanderbilt, but
So wait, start over. Who's Oregon
Oregon is definitely in.
and Ohio State?
Ohio State is definitely in. They could lose to Michigan. Here's the thing. If they lose to Michigan, Indiana goes to the conference championship game. So they sit out,
Oh,
but that's
wow.
a 2-loss
they're still
Ohio
in.
State team.
Yeah.
So they're still in no
They're
matter
still
what.
in.
Yeah.
And I don't think that beating Michigan and then losing to Oregon,
No, they're still in.
they're going to be in no matter
Yeah,
what.
Ohio
No
State's
matter-
in.
Okay.
So Oregon is in. Ohio State is in. Penn State is in. They just have to beat Maryland, and they finish 11-1.
Right.
They're not losing to fucking Maryland at home. It's not happening. Notre Dame, I'm going to assume, is in also because they're going to be favored. I know that they're on the road at
It's
USC.
possible. It's just possible, but yeah,
They've
but they're
looked-
not for
to be
sure
fair,
in.
and I hate Notre Dame as a general principle. They've looked really good this year after that loss to NIU.
Right.
Like they have dominated the games in a way that I wouldn't have expected them to. I think they played Louisville close. Was the only close game that they've had since NIU, and Louisville's actually a pretty good team. So,
Only a 7.5-point game with USC, but yeah.
but let's assume that Notre Dame is in. I said Boise was in also, and I said that the Big 12 has one, right? So what does that give me? That gives me
That's 6
6 so far before we even get to any SEC teams.
Yeah.
or ACC.
Right, now we do the ACC. If Miami beats Syracuse, and then they would play SMU in the conference championship game, I think we're in a situation
I
now.
think they're both in.
I think they're both in.
Yeah.
And Clemson now has an outside argument as a team that gets left out of the ACC championship game with
If they beat South Carolina.
with a win against South Carolina,
Yeah.
who's actually a really good team. It'll be another ranked opponent that they will have beaten this time. It will be hard to keep a 10-2 Clemson team out when there's so many 3-loss
Yeah.
SEC
And
teams.
one of those
right?
losses is against a good Georgia team, and then Louisville. I don't know.
The best thing for this committee would be if they end up, and it's possible that they end up with 12 teams with less than 3 losses. And
Right.
only 12 teams with less
But
than 3 losses.
Let's for now just assume that we have 2 ACC teams in.
Okay.
What is
Now
that?
8.
So we're at 8 before I've named a single SEC team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I haven't yet said that Indiana is in.
Right.
But
Yeah.
Indiana is in, right? So let's put Indiana
Okay.
in there. That gives me 9 teams that are guaranteed in. So if we're looking at 9 teams in, let's assume that Georgia beats Georgia Tech.
Okay.
We cannot be left out no matter what happens in
Yeah.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
It would be really. I don't know.
Because then we would have
I
3
feel like
losses,
they
but it would be
could.
a conference title loss. Is that going to count the same as a regular season loss?
Yeah. Well, and it'll probably, like I keep saying, depend on what the game looks like. If it's a conference title loss that looks like the Alabama 2021 loss where
Yeah.
we just didn't show up,
Yeah.
there is argument. I won't like it.
All right, but regardless, Texas in at number. Let's leaving Georgia out.
Okay.
Texas is ranked 3rd in the country.
Yeah.
either they beat Texas A&M and play for the conference title, they're in, or they lose to Texas A&M, don't have to play for the title, but are a 2-loss SEC team. Is there a 3-loss SEC team?
No, not anymore. Not after last weekend.
That can get ahead of them.
Bitches.
Right? So Texas is guaranteed in at this point.
Yeah.
I think that means, given everything else I've said so far,
Tennessee.
Tennessee is guaranteed in, right?
Almost.
Yeah.
Unless they lose to Vanderbilt.
Unless they lose to Vandy. And if Tennessee loses to Vandy, that's where you're in a situation where now, is it going to be South Carolina, Ole Miss, or Alabama? Right?
No,
That's
because you'll also have A&M, potentially. We just don't know.
No, obviously we just don't know. But if Texas beats A&M,
But what if they don't?
well, no, it doesn't matter. If Texas beats A&M, they're at 8-4. If A&M wins, they're at 9-3. A&M is not ahead of South Carolina or
'cause they just lost
Alabama.
this
They just
weekend.
lost to Auburn. So,
Yeah.
there's no
They
way that.
no, but A&M. If A&M wins the SEC championship, they're in.
Yeah.
No, obviously, this is
Obviously.
what's absurd about it, right? Is that A&M is either 8-4 and completely out of it, or if they win the SEC championship, they're a top 4
But
national
then
seed.
they
Yeah.
deserve it if they because they
Right,
would-
obviously,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
The point that I'm trying to get at here, though, is that it's not impossible that they could be looking at trying to decide between Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Alabama.
Listen, you're at 11 now, and we don't have with Texas and Tennessee. Tennessee is what's not guaranteed there, but I haven't listed Georgia, and I'm up to 11 spots.
That's with giving the ACC 2
Yeah,
and giving the Big Ten 4.
yeah.
Right.
So like Texas,
So,
Tennessee,
ACC
Georgia,
2,
A&M.
Big Ten 4 is 6. Notre Dame is 7. Boise is 8. Georgia, Texas is 10. Tennessee is 11. Who am I leaving out?
Say it again.
4 from the Big Ten.
You got one from
Hold
the
on,
Big
let me
12.
move this one.
Oh, 1 from the Big 12 is who I
Yeah.
was leaving out. Yeah. Yeah, I just don't see any. Unfortunately for the SEC, in terms of sneaking in a 3-loss team, I don't see any of those 4 Big Ten teams not making the playoff.
Yeah.
And it's largely a function of their schedule.
So if there is a 3-loss SEC team, it will be the conference championship loser,
Right.
which it would be us because Texas would be going in.
And what's crazy is that I think that maybe South Carolina is more deserving than Tennessee.
Sure, but like Tennessee might not even make it.
No, Tennessee's in.
Yeah, unless they lose to Vandy, assuming they
Unless
win
they
that.
lose to Vanderbilt, which I think I'm taking Vandy. Spoiler for Wednesday evening's recording. I'm absolutely taking Vandy.
to win outright. Wow. look at you.
Goddamn right. Are you kidding me? I have an insurmountable lead, and we could give Vanderbilt like the greatest season in their school's history if they beat Tennessee.
Yeah.
Like it's one thing to beat Alabama. That's great. It's another thing to also end your greatest rivals' playoff hopes with a win.
All right, I'm putting what I just wrote into your pick'em.
The problem is just that if you assume all 4 from the Big Ten, plus Boise, plus the Big 12 champ, plus 2 from the ACC, this is where it got weird. We went from basically like there's no chance that the ACC gets a second team in to it's hard to imagine
It is.
keeping a second ACC team out given all of the 3-loss teams in the SEC. Nobody benefited more besides Tennessee.
Potentially. But like if is there a chance that it's Georgia and A&M and Texas? If A&M wins
And
this
then you have
weekend,
an idle Texas.
I don't think that a 3-loss A&M, a 4-loss A&M team.
if A&M wins this weekend,
Yeah.
If they win this weekend and then we beat them, they cannot possibly be in the playoff.
but what if they win this weekend and then they beat us?
Yeah. if
then
run-
they're in the playoff.
And then what about
So
Georgia,
then
Texas?
Tennessee's not.
Yeah. So yeah, in Lori's scenario, if Texas A&M runs the table, they win that title, they're in. Georgia, they beat Tech, but they lose to Texas A&M. They should be in, right? And then Texas.
So then
Over
it becomes
Tennessee, you would
a
hope.
question of is Texas or Tennessee more deserving of spot number 12? And I think it's obvious that Tennessee is actually more deserving.
Yeah,
because
but that didn't matter last year with
because
Florida State.
Texas will not have.
Yeah.
They will not have a win as good as the wins that Tennessee has.
Florida State did nothing but win last year, and they left them out.
No, I know. So it just becomes a question of, did the perception of Texas and the brand name of Texas over Tennessee, is that the thing that got them into the playoff despite having a demonstrably worse year than Tennessee did? And I think it's probably true. Like, I think that I agree. I think it would be wrong. I think that Tennessee belongs in over Texas if what you're saying is what comes to pass. But also, I don't think that Texas is losing Texas A&M this weekend.
Yeah.
But who the fuck knows?
I think they will. I think Texas A&M is going to win. What's the line? 7 points?
It's 5.5 points.
Yeah, I think Texas A&M wins.
I don't know.
I know.
Anyway, as I said at the top, despite the intrigue and excitement and joy that this is bringing to our conversation here, I still maintain that the 12-team playoff was a fucking mistake.
I think it's great.
You think that Georgia's just done for the season?
No, I mean, it's fucking fine. I would have been more in favor of any playoff scheme that found a way to incorporate winning of the conference championships into the decision-making process. And instead, it continues to be this utterly arbitrary thing that is done behind closed doors about what the committee thinks the relative strengths of one team is versus another. And I know it's better ultimately to decide it on the field, so to speak, in a tournament type of situation. I still wish that they could have found a way to involve the conference championship games in a more meaningful way, to reward.
Maybe they will.
Yeah, maybe maybe in future years they'll tweak it to account for that, because in some ways it is almost
You
like
just need to end up with 4 super conferences. You can't have all of this bullshit with all of the at-larges and the group of 5 stuff. You just have to end up with 4 super conferences and have the conferences championships actually mean something.
Yeah, that could work. But in the meantime, this is not a bad compromise for the time being. It accounts a lot of these 2-loss, 3-loss teams. It's a strength of schedule issue where teams like in the Big Ten are not playing anybody and their resume looks good, but they haven't been tested. And other teams are playing through very grueling schedules, especially in the SEC, and their record looks a little shoddy. But we'll find out when they all play each other in December, right? Like, how good is Penn State when they play against a good team?
Right. And I saw a good point about the strength of schedule stuff, which is like Indiana goes from the 106th most rigorous strength of schedule ranking to like the mid-50s or something after playing Ohio State. Right?
Really? Wow.
Yeah, Indiana is now 51 in strength of schedule after starting before the week at 106. Georgia's still number 1. So the point simply being that strength of schedule can vary wildly based on just any one game, and that like you can go from 75th strength of schedule to 25th strength of schedule just because you played a 7-4 team versus playing a 4-7 team. Like just one game can make all of the difference. And so it's not exact, but I do think that like if you were to divide it more into like levels, right? Like Georgia's number Right, Georgia's number 1 for a reason. Right. That doesn't mean that like the difference between 1 and 7 matters, but the difference between 1 and fucking 75 actually matters a great deal. Right. And the difference between 40 and 80 matters almost nothing at all. It can all hinge on just one game. Yeah. But the difference between 25 and 106 actually does matter in some significant way. And again, if you go and you just look at strength of schedule simply by conference, and you look at the SEC, for example, you've got Georgia 1 nationally, Florida 2 nationally, Kentucky 3 nationally, Oklahoma 4 nationally, Mississippi State 5 nationally, LSU 7, Vanderbilt 9, Alabama 11, South Carolina 12, Arkansas 15, Missouri 20. The worst strength of schedule in the SEC is Texas at number 36. Wow. Okay? That's brutal. Then you go look at the Big Ten strength of schedule. Purdue, number 6. UCLA, 8. Michigan State, 13. Something that unites those three teams. Wisconsin, 16. Nebraska, 17. Washington, 19. Michigan, 21. Something that unites those 7 teams at the top of the Big Ten strength of schedule rankings is that they all fucking suck ass, right? And then until you get to Ohio State with the 25th toughest schedule in the land, there's Penn State at 32, there's Oregon at 52, there's Indiana at 51. Like, it's just a different sort of fucking thing, and that league's going to get 4 teams in guaranteed, and the SEC is only going to get 3, and it's just silly.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've been going for quite some
It's
time.
very late.
You've been listening to Cast Iron Balls, a podcast with Bob and Abe. Lori's here too. We talk about sports, mostly college football, obviously. You can find us on Substack, brainiron.substack.com for more from us. The opening and closing themes of the show are composed by Mark Gillig, tetramermusic.com, Tetramer music.com for more from him. Abe, anything else in the world of sport catch your eye in the last few days?
No, just that 9-team possibility.
Utterly ridiculous. But yeah, it means there's a lot of teams still in it. They need to do something with the schedules to make things sort of more logical and coherent in terms of leveling things out. I don't know if that means that you go to like divisions within conferences where you always play the same people, and then from like year to year, the way that the NFL does it, where like the first place team has to play the first place team, and the second, like from last year, right? Like, isn't that how they do it?
Yeah, they're trying to create some balance. Yeah.
You have to find a way to make sure that the good teams are playing the other good teams, and that the bad teams have an opportunity to sort of move up in that way, right? So if a fourth place team is playing a fourth place team, it gives them a better opportunity to win that game and therefore improve their lot for next season, right? Like, they've got to do something with the schedule making to make it not entirely arbitrary, right? Indiana, if they play the 30th hardest schedule in the country this year, is not undefeated coming into Ohio State.
Right.
Like, again, it's complicated. I don't know how they do it. And the fact that the fucking conferences turn over like crazy every couple of years, and like you have no idea what the landscape of college football is going to look like 3 or 5 years out, means that making any of the sorts of changes that could make things more logical and coherent on the long run is a loser's game, because everything's just going to fucking change anyway.
Right.
And nobody, like, the assumption is that this 12-team playoff is only going to last a couple of years maximum anyway.
Right. And also, let this entire season play out, including the playoffs, because you could have the best teams rise to the top, through the playoffs, and maybe people will tolerate a Big Ten or a conference undeserving of having that many slots, getting that many slots, and then they're exposed. Like, it's not like they're going to be able to worm their way to the title game just because they got in. You still have to win the games.
Yeah. Anyway, it's going to be another. I mean, it's rivalry weekend. There are multiple rivalry weekends throughout the season, obviously, but
but this one's called that.
Yeah.
This one is called that, and this one has a bunch of very exciting games, which we will talk about when we reconvene on Wednesday evening. A very exciting weekend of college sports to come. Lori, did you have anything you wanted to mention? No, of course not. It is bedtime. Abe, you've got anything else at all for us tonight? I really need to figure out a new way to end the show, because I can't be asking you if you've got anything else in the world of sport to mention. Only 30 seconds later, give my regular outro of "Have you got anything else for us tonight?"
No,
Abe,
you just have to not add more after he doesn't add more.
Yeah.
You did. You just now.
I know, but I'm asking the same question twice effectively at the end of the show, and I need something else here.
The implication when you ask it the first time is that you're done. And so then you ask him if he has more, and you're like, oh no, well, I have more.
Imagine being me and not having something to say in response to something someone else says. It's utterly inconceivable. I am incapable of not having something to say.
Like our children.
Hey, you got anything else for us tonight?
Nope.
About fucking time. I guess that's all we've got for you tonight, then. And we will talk to you next time.
Later.
Only 5 for Cousin Steve. Tough run for Cousin
wow.
Steve here lately.
Couple of stinkers. Didn't he have a 0? Although I had a 0 week also.
The thing is,
He
I
had a
can make
0. He had a 0 3 weeks ago, and then a 5 and a 5. He's got 10 points in 3 weeks.
I can kind of make anything work as long as I know what the plan is.
Well, let's plan to go early then, because it makes things easier for us, I think.
Because I can just, it will depend which pie I do first, you know?
Yeah. Can you do 7, Abe?
Yeah. I can do whatever.
The kids won't be sad.
Kids will be fine.
And, it'll be a quick one. Like
I do
the
have
others are.
scores now. Since I didn't actually say the scores, I'm up to 305 points in the Pick'em game. Abe, second place with 210. Lori, third place with 189. Cousin Steve in the caboose with 167.
167, boy. So when is that? We have a couple more. You said there's like a second.
We'll do rivalry week,
Yeah.
and then we'll do the final week will be conference championship week because there's more than enough games to
That's right.
choose from there. And then we will reset and start phase 2 for the playoff run, I think.
Okay. Sounds good.
What a spectacular weekend of football.
It's
Also,
just so fucking crazy.
I
I can't
forgot-
get over it.
is it possible, Abe, that Jameis Winston is actually awesome?
At football?
No, like in general.
He raped that girl, Bob.
Look, sometimes you do rapes as a young man and you grow.
Is that what happened here?
The horses prepare for battle, but victory comes from the Lord. And we back again out here playing some football on Thursday night. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Touchdowns out here. Let us know some touchdowns. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Love you. Oh, when the fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey! You have a snow game? Heck yeah. You said yeah? Yes. Your whole life? I'm from Alabama, man. I ain't never played in the freaking snow before, but I know one thing. We're gonna make some snow angels by dominating the line of scrimmage. We'll make some snow angels. Yes. That's what I said. I told you. Somebody jump on sides. Damn.
That is my favorite hard count in the history of
Somebody
hard counts.
jump off.
He gets to the end of the hard count and he just says, with his hands up, somebody jump off sides, damn! It's so good.
Oh, he seems like an exhausting person to be around.
The proceeding was created with 100% human content.